Joining us from Capitol Hill, member of the Select Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. Good to have you on this
Senator,
morning.
good to have you back. Let's talk. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but we're most interested around this table and have been for the last 3 hours about defense and the intel communities. Can you name some names that would provide you comfort running the CIA and running the DOD?
Well, one of the names that I wish the president-elect would have stuck with was Mike Rogers. And unfortunately, we saw him, unceremoniously booted out yesterday. I wish he would maybe keep Ash Carter as secretary at least for a year at DOD for continuity. I think it's, when I was first elected governor, I'd never served in public office before. Moving from running a business to running a government, you got to get people with different types of skills. You need a diversity of views. Particularly running the United States government is much different than running any kind of private sector enterprise. And I think Mr. Trump's got to learn that, and we're seeing some of this play out. I've just been listening to your conversation. Who would have thought a week ago we'd be talking about one of his top appointments being somebody with ties to white supremacists? I don't know this guy Bannon, but clearly, Donald Trump, I hope, will set a tone that's more what he said the day after the election, that you're going to try to be a president for all of Americans. Now, at the same time, I got to just add one other point. I think all of us, this was a rejection not just of the Democrats. It was a of establishment Republicans. It was a rejection of the media. It was a rejection of corporate America. And I think we all got to listen that our current economic system is not working for enough people. My dad worked for the same company for 45 years. Nobody works for the same company for 45 years anymore. We've got a business community that manages to quarter-by-quarter profits as opposed to long-term value creation. Something has fundamentally got to be rearranged. And my hope is that there'll be a group of us from both parties that can actually set out to try to see if we could actually get capitalism working for more people.
Senator, it's Willie Geist. We had Congressman Tim Ryan on not long ago. He's considering a bid to run against Nancy Pelosi at this point, and his argument really is, look what happened last Tuesday, which is that we ignored the problems and the concerns and the fears of working class people in this country, and he would be a better vessel for that than someone from San Francisco coming from outside Youngstown, Ohio. Do you think that's a good idea for some new leadership at the top in the House?
I'm not going to comment on leadership in the House. I can barely say grace over what we've got here in the Senate. I will tell you that as somebody who's spent a career both as a governor and a senator saying the 21st century has left a lot of rural communities behind, and the Democratic Party can't just be a party of metropolitan areas in the East Coast and the West Coast. We got to do a better job for those communities which have lost a factory to trade or globalization. That we've got a third of the workforce right now that doesn't work in traditional full-time employment. They've got no social insurance. We ought to have a portable benefit system to allow people to start collecting some social insurance, disability insurance, unemployment, retirement from that first job. We really need to rethink the structure of the social contract in I think, a fundamentally new way. I'm not sure whether this breaks down Democrat or Republican. I do think Democrats do a lot better when we kind of lean into the future and recognize that we got to be a lot more a party that includes more folks, particularly working class folks all across the country.
Senator, hi, it's Bianna Golodryga. I think one of the big takeaways, as you pointed out, from the election was that modern capitalism really isn't working for the majority of Americans. From what you're hearing about the president-elect's economic plan and business plan going forward, aside from you see the stock market rallying from earnings expectations and what have you, and dividends for shareholders that a lot of shareholders are expecting now from tax cuts, what do you say to the West Virginian coal miner who voted for Donald Trump that's now maybe going to get a $200 tax break and that's it? What do you say about the future plans coming together with Democrats and Republicans to help the majority of Americans reestablish themselves into the modern economy?
I say a couple of things. One, I do hope, particularly some of my friends in the Freedom Caucus in the House, will stick to their comments about debt and deficit. A quick sugar high with a tax cut that's unpaid for when we've already got $19 trillion in debt is really unsustainable. You know, right now, if interest rates go up 1 percentage point, that adds $140 billion a year of additional spending right off the top just for debt service. I do think we need to think about alignment of, you know, how we get business to think longer term. I spent longer in business than I have in politics. Something is wrong when 95% of corporate profits are paid out in share buyback and dividends and not reinvested in businesses. That coal miner in West Virginia, whether it's coal or other energy production jobs, they want reinvestment in their community, and that's not going to happen. The current focus, which is so focused just on the short term, just on quarter-by-quarter profits. We got to recognize as well, we got workforce training programs that candidly government has run that don't work, and yet there's no incentive in place for businesses to invest, particularly in low and moderate skilled people. That needs a whole new relook. And again, I don't know whether this is Democrat or Republican. I do hope that the Democratic Party will embrace these kind of ideas. But it's going to be a lot different than the kind of traditional liberal conservative. It's going to be much more a future past. We got to make this economic system work for everybody.
All right, Senator Mark Warner, thank you so much.